Hi there, welcome to Floating in Books. Today's video is going to be my non-bookish favorites of 2023. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me today. I have a bit of a different video for you today because I just wanted to chat to you about some things that I have been loving that isn't exactly books and that isn't makeup. So I made a little list based on my viewing history on some of my streaming platforms that I'm subscribed to let you know which things it was that I watched and that I enjoyed. So it's mainly going to be TV series and movies, and I have one honorable mention for my favorite album that I discovered this year. Well, last year, because we're already in 2024. So yeah, let me start with that music recommendation. This band is actually a band I already knew I loved. I have all of their other older albums, and I saw them live when they were touring their very first album ever. It's a band called Jungle, and if you were on TikTok over the summertime, this was everywhere. Everybody was copying the dance routine from one of the songs of their new album, Volcano. And this is something they have been doing since the start of their career, where the musicians themselves aren't in the music videos, but they hire a group of dancers to sort of visually represent what the songs have to offer. And as they grow as artists and the more vision they have, the more budget they also have, the more they have invested in making like a truly visual album. And that's what they did for this. So there is one particular song where a lot of people were like doing a couple of the dances that are in it from that visual album. It was everywhere and it went viral. It's back on 74, I think. And that was one of my most listened to songs according to my Spotify Wrapped as well. I just listened to that album on repeat to the point where I was even like, okay, I need to purchase this. I haven't really listened to a lot of like physical copy media in the past year. I don't really listen to albums anymore, but this one I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go out and buy myself this album to support them. And I mean, I don't have to see them live anymore. I know they're good. I mean, they are. If you ever get the chance to see Jungle live, please do, please do. It's one big party. It's very danceable, sort of. It's not disco, but it's got like, it's like hip hop, funk, disco. There's something very old schooly about it, but at the same time, it sounds really modern. So I love them. I've loved them for years. They're one of my favorites, actually. So to see them going viral on TikTok was like right on point, but that's why I had to mention them here. Then for streaming things I've been watching, and I have quite the list actually. I liked quite a lot of the things I watched, but also there's also a lot that I was like scrolling through my Netflix watch history and I was like, did I like that? Did I watch that? I had completely forgotten. And I should definitely keep a list of everything that I watched in a given year from now on, because I spend a good couple of hours the other day scrolling through some of the streaming services that don't keep track of your watch history just to see what was on offer. Like, oh yeah, I watched that and I watched that, because some of them do like show you a little bar that you've actually watched it. But not all of the streaming services have like a nice little list that you can go back to at the end of the year like Netflix has. Oh well. First things first, I'm just gonna go from bottom to top. I really enjoy Only Murders in the Building. I don't know if anybody's watching this. It's on Disney+. It stars Steve Martin. I always forget the other guy's name. And then Selena Gomez. And they are brilliant together in this. It starts in the first season, like the very first episode, first season. They are escorted out of their building because something has happened in the building, a murder, and they are all fans of this murder true crime podcast individually of each other, and they didn't know this. And then they are in this little cafe and they're all roped in together in this little booth, and then they start talking and they end up liking the same thing. And then because of this murder happening in this building that they live in New York, they decide to make their own podcast. And that's sort of like the premise of all of the series that they have going on, really, is where they have this podcast talking about like a murder case that happened in their building. because there's another murder happening in season 2 and there's another murder happening in season 3. It's like a whole thing. And they really play up the generational differences between the two older guys and Selena Gomez, who's a lot younger. Very funny. It's definitely more of like a comedy thing, and they really play around with like the love that people have for true crime. So it's just so incredibly funny to me to watch, because I do like a bit of true crime myself, and there's like music in it and songs and dancing, and it's really fun. And Steve Martin and the other guy are actual friends in real life as well. And it's like, it's so incredibly funny and it's so well done. And there's all these other famous actors that come in and that are part of the whole thing. So yeah, it's incredibly funny. The episodes are quite short. It's like a one sitting kind of thing to watch. There are 3 seasons now, and they had a new season launch in August. And Disney Plus does like release 1 episode at the time, so I did wait until everything was available this fall, and I watched it all in one go because it's that good. Then on HBO, I actually watched Tokyo Vice, which is based on a true story, I believe. And I do remember watching some sort of true crime story as well that kind of ties in with what this was about, but this is like a dramatized version of events, you could say. So this is about an American who has moved to Japan, has learned Japanese to a very high level, and he is the first Westerner to be employed by the biggest newspaper in Japan, and he's trying to make a career. That's sort of like the premise of it. And then he befriends one of the police investigators of this really big murder case, and he somehow is involved with like the Tokyo Mafia and all that. Like, it's a whole thing. It's only 1 season by now, but it was so good. And yeah, it's like set in the late 90s, and one of the cases that's sort of like, I'm not sure if the case was in here, but there was a true crime series, like I mentioned, that's also that journalist, because he existed, and the Tokyo Vice series is based on his book about his time working for this newspaper. And there was this story that broke of an English girl who disappeared and then was found murdered by this like high-playing, like this darker side of the Tokyo like clubbing thing. And there is a character in this TV series that sort of does what she does as well. So I sort of saw a lot of parallels between the two. So they definitely sort of took inspiration from that as well. So yeah, some true things that actually happened, but it is dramatized. So of course some things are sugar-coated or like emphasized or whatever. So yeah, I did really enjoy that. And then I watched, this was on Disney Plus as well, Banshees of Inisherin. I hope I pronounced that correctly. My Gaelic Irish isn't that good. I'm not sure if it's Gaelic. But it's set in Ireland, and it's about 2 friends, Colin Farrell and the actor who played Professor Moody in the Harry Potter series. I don't know his name. But they're 2 really good friends, and one day one of them decides that he no longer wants to be friends. They meet every single day. The only thing there is to do in this entire town is to go down to the pub for a beer, and they've been doing that for years. And one day, one of them just decides, I no longer want to be your friend. And then the other guy's like, but I don't understand. Why don't you no longer want to hang out with me? And the more the guy pressures the other one for an explanation, the more the other guy gets upset about it and eventually starts cutting off his fingers. Like, for every time you're gonna ask me, I'm going to lose a finger. And everybody's like, what's this? Because he's a musician who plays the fiddle really, really well. And he does also cut off the fingers from his fiddle hand. It's a bit of a weird one, but it's so beautifully filmed. Like, you just want to go to Ireland when you see this movie. Like, it's one big poster campaign for like small Irish villages. You can definitely say that. But yeah, plot wise, it was a little bit strange and weird, and not a movie that you watch and you go like, oh yeah, that was very enjoyable. Like, it's one that makes you think about like the themes that are going on, and it's quite dark. Like, it's about like the meanings of friendship and the role of small town social structures and all that, because everybody's watching everyone and all that stuff. So yeah, very enjoyable indeed from a like cinematography kind of perspective rather than like plot, I would say. Then we have Cruella. I had never seen this before. This is also, of course, on Disney Plus. It's the live action version with Emma Stone as Cruella. And what's her name? Why am I blanking? She's super famous. I don't know, some other famous actress that I've seen in so many different movies. Emma Thompson. It's another Emma, of course. Why am I blanking on this? And she's like a fashion designer in like the 70s, and Cruella wants to be her, and then she wants to work there, and then she ends up getting a job there, but then things go horribly wrong. So it's sort of like the making of Cruella, like how Cruella became Cruella. And it was so enjoyable. I'm not entirely sure whether I enjoy Emma Stone in the role though, but if this gets a sequel, I'm watching it. I thought this was pretty cool. I think this is also on Disney Plus, and this is one of those things I had completely forgotten watching, but I do want to let you know, if you want a little bit of Dutch history, but you want it in English, then the TV series A Small Light is about Anne Frank and her time being hidden behind the bookcase in Amsterdam. So this is and it's from the perspective of one of the people who was protecting the Frank family and the other people living in the annex. So if you want to learn a bit of history there, then that might be enjoyable. More Disney Plus. I have a lot of Disney Plus in here. The Bear, season 2. Season 1 was great as well. I watched that last year, and The Bear was really enjoyable too. Again, for the second season, I just really like their characters that are in that series. I mean, they just love to hate each other, but then they love each other too much to like drop anyone. And it's at the same time, it's like set in a restaurant that's trying to be more upscale than it used to be. So it's sort of like family and friends, but also like the making and breaking of careers. That's very much in it. Very enjoyable. And then a true crime series that was mind-boggling, as some of them are. I find so many of the true crime series that you can watch are just so like similar to one another, and they all start to blur together, but this one really stood out. It's called Captive Audience. It's also on Disney Plus. And this is the weirdest, like strangest story. It's an entire family that is affected by first the kidnapping and then the return of one of their sons. And it just messes up the entire family. So it messes up him. It messes up another person who is kidnapped together with him. And then it also messes up like other people in his family once he's back. So it's a very, very, yeah, very strange story to behold if you start getting into it. Then there were 2 movies, of course, released over the summertime that a lot of people started watching together. I didn't. I did watch them in the same weekend, and I'm talking, of course, about Barbie and Oppenheimer, 2 very different movies, and I enjoy both. I do like a bit of Christopher Nolan from time to time. Sometimes I find his movies a little bit too bombastic, and I don't always want that. But I felt that with Oppenheimer, there were a couple of very like clever twists, especially towards the end. Like there are little hints that are dropped at the start of the movie, and then at the end of the movie it kind of like ties together if you pay attention. And I thought that especially the character played by Robert Downey Jr. was like, it's like a side character. It's like not a main role, but the emphasis, like the impact he had is like if it played out that way throughout history, that would just be, if that truly happened that way. But of course that's all speculation. Yeah, and of course you do get the entire story of how Oppenheimer got 2 and made 1, and like there's that as well. Like it's a long movie, but it was very cleverly done. There were just a couple of things that I found were sort of glossed over that I would have liked a little bit more out of. So as much as I did like it, I do see there are a couple of flaws here and there, but it was just a really brilliant plot in the end, like how everything goes together. And that's one of the reasons why I like Christopher Nolan movies, actually, because a lot of them actually have those kind of like little twists if you pay attention. Some of his movies need a rewatch for you to fully get it sometimes. And then of course Barbie, what's not to like? This was incredibly fun. It does have very strong feminist undertones, so if that's not your vibe, then maybe don't watch this. Just saying. Yeah, I think the acting was brilliant, and the fact that there were like random musical numbers everywhere was just so much fun. But despite it being fun and super colorful, it also has a much more serious message, which is that more feminist sort of vibe that it has going on. So again, if that's not your cup of tea, then maybe don't do it. But I enjoyed it for sure. I think this I might have watched on Prime. I'm not entirely sure if I watched this on Prime or not. There's nothing here that I watched on Netflix, which is what I tend to watch most often, but everything is from other streaming services. So maybe it was on Netflix, I don't know. But There Will Be Blood, which is a movie I had never watched, and it's Daniel Day-Lewis is the main actor in it, and it's about like finding oil and like people getting rich from it, but at the same time his character has a boy who, I'm not sure why he is sent away anymore, but there's this like whole father-son relationship that's very much highlighted in the movie. And this was just so well done. Like overall, the entire movie just really came together. And there's a reason why this is acclaimed, and I'm really, really happy I actually ended up watching it. And then if you want to laugh, some reality TV that I don't watch a lot of reality TV, but Clarksons Farm on Prime. So it's Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear fame, who with his money bought a farm, and then the person who was farming the land was retiring or something, and then he was like, well, I might take it up myself. So he does hire someone to help him out because he knows nothing of farming. And there's all these little clashes between him and the people who are very well versed in farming, and then he wants to do it his way, and then he gets the local council who's not agreeing to him having a farm shop, and there's like local politics there, and there's like lots of banter, like the risk of crops failing, but it also shows you what modern farming looks like it shows you all the bits. So yeah, it's really enjoyable. It's very English though, so if you don't like British humor, you may not like it. And there are people in this series who are like, not even subtitles can make them understandable to you, so you do need to step over like some sort of language barrier. But it's incredibly funny to watch him struggle getting things done on time, trying to do it his way when everybody's telling him there is a better way, and then he's like very stubborn and headstrong and goes like, no, but you should do it like this, and then of course it always works the other way around. John Wick 4. I like me a bit of John Wick, I'm not gonna lie. I've watched all of those movies. Bit of Keanu Reeves, just a lot of fighting. Sometimes the fight scenes are a little bit too long, especially in these later movies where you're like, okay, that was like 10-15 minutes of a guy just being beaten to a pulp and he's still standing. Not sure how believable I find that in the long run, but yeah, I do really enjoy these movies. They're a brainless watch. I don't really perpetrate anything else than, if you want to watch an enjoyable action movie, this might be one. And then I think one of my favorite movies I watched all year, which I had not expected because I did not know what it was about before watching it, is Everything Everywhere All at Once. And this was so good. It's about interdimensional space, like time travel, and at the same time it really zooms in on people with like an Asian heritage in the United States and how they make a living and how they come to the United States, and like the prejudices against them and all that. And at the same time, we just have someone who's like kicking ass in other dimensions. It's funny, it's a little bit of sci-fi, yet it also has a very serious undertone. And this was one of the best things I watched all year. I really enjoyed it. And then finally, another thing that I really enjoyed watching, which again was like TikTok influenced me kind of moment, because around Christmas time, everybody was like, Saltburn, Saltburn, Saltburn. And I was like, what's Saltburn? So friends of mine said that they had watched it. I was like, is this any good? Like, I hear so many great, crazy stories about how weird this movie is and dark and whatever. I was like, is this like horror? What is this supposed to be? And they're like, no, it's not. And then I watched it. It's on Prime as well. And I was like, oh, wait, people just haven't watched like indie movies before. Like, if you've ever watched anything that's not mainstream media movies, like if you can get out of your bubble of like Marvel movies for just a second, or if you've watched, like read any sort of literature, ancient mythology, then Saltburn will be okay for you. Yes, there are a couple of weird scenes, but the scenes are there to show you the character development that we're getting in this movie. So there's definitely a purpose there. But yeah, it's a movie about a student who goes to Oxford and infiltrates pretty much this very rich family and is invited to their house over the course of the summer in 2006 and 2007. So the soundtrack is totally up my street because it was exactly what I was listening to at the time. There's some Block Party in there. There's a couple of songs from the movie that are going viral and that are now charting again in certain countries because of that movie, which I always find fun. But yeah, there was a lot of amazing music in there. MGMT, I think, was in there too. So yeah, lots of fun music, but also some really cool themes. And like there's a whole discussion online, like what the movie means and whatnot. So I'm not going to add my 2 cents to it. And I think that if you just have a little bit of cultural knowledge, that you're going to find all the layers that this has. It's not just about someone who manipulates everyone around them. Because everybody is manipulating everyone in this story, which is I think one of the things that a lot of people are missing, that yes, Oliver is trying to manipulate everybody around him, but so is Felix, who they're kind of like not really in love, but like eyeing each other up for sure, as are the mom and dad in the story, as is the sister. Like everybody is trying to influence everybody in this story. And I just thought it was a very interesting like study of how people come together and what happens if you bring the worst out of people, really. So yeah, Saltburn was incredibly enjoyable, great soundtrack, and I loved some of the themes that were in that movie. Yes, it's dark, but it's like a dark comedy. It's not that terrible, and some people were making it out to seem like this horror movie where people were dying left, right, and center. Yes, people die in this story. In fact, most of the characters we meet in this story end up dying in the end. But yeah, it's just a bit of a one of those like more gothic-y kind of unsettling kind of stories, and not one where it's like, ooh, this is scary or gory or whatever. But yeah, if you've watched anything that's like not mainstream movies, then I think you're fine with this. So yeah, I really did enjoy Saltburn, so thank you so very much for joining me. Those were my favorites of 2023, so if you didn't know what to watch, maybe these are some things that you might be interested in, I don't know. Thumbs up this video if you liked it. I come on here once a week to share with you thoughts on anything that isn't makeup related, because I do all the makeup over on my main channel. This is books and fashion, bit of lifestyle travel mostly, like just everything I want to make content about that can't go onto the other channel. I kind of use this one as my dumping ground. So I do hope to have some more videos up later this month, so if you'd like to stay tuned, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye-bye.